Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack here, Thursday now, October 17th, 2024. Hope you're having a great afternoon. Pretty short today, not a lot to talk about. We do have two areas of interest out there, both of which could be some pretty big rainmakers, especially the one to the west near Central America, Honduras, Nicaragua, and then Belize and portions of the Yucatan. That one might eke out a depression status, an upgrade from where it is now. It's not even an invest yet. Maybe even a tropical storm. We'll see. But remember, those are just labels that we affix to things like sticky notes. The impacts are what matters, and especially the one down there in the Northwest Caribbean, that could in fact be a big rainmaker. And then at the end of today's update, one last window of opportunity for something to get going later in the month, in the early part of November. We will take a look at that. All right, let's get on with it. I said it's going to be short, so let's make it short. First, National Hurricane Center homepage. Here's our westernmost feature. 30% chance of development overall, and really it's going to be a matter of land interaction. The more this stays out over water, the better it has a chance to become a named storm or something like that. Again, that's just a label. The more it straddles the coast, the less chance it has to organize. I think we understand all the mechanisms behind that. Meanwhile, this is Invest Area 94, and it is headed toward the vicinity of the Southwest Atlantic. We're not in a favorable phase of the MJO right now, so we just put a big red X over here. Just a lot of sinking motion, not a lot of forcing as we call it, so it's not a good time for these systems to be out here. They're not having a good environment to exist in or within. Nevertheless, these are the paths that the disturbances should take, their development potential areas, and this is what it looks like on the absolutely spectacular satellite animation. I got to use this more often. Nothing against tropical tidbits, but man, this is just gorgeous. You got to agree, right? So here is 94L. It's pretty stretched out and kind of elongated now. That energy just not quite as focused, so it's probably not going to have a chance to develop very much. And most of the moisture should stay north of the islands over here. So from Guadeloupe and northwest through the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, maybe a few rain showers, but nothing too concentrated, and certainly nothing to worry about in terms of significant impacts. Meanwhile, here's our gathering moisture with our system in the Western Caribbean. And then you can see our front has made it all the way down. Southwesterly flow aloft. This is your cool, dry air sitting over the Atlantic and the Gulf. You love to see it, especially with all the cleanup that's been going on in the wake of the brutal mid to end part of September and first part of October here. It's good to see things calming down. So the vorticity perspective, you knew I was going to pull this one out. It's an important chart. I like it. There it is. There's your oval shape. That's not going to cut it. Can't be oval. That's interesting, isn't it? Strong vorticity off the coast of North Carolina. Let's go back to the satellite animation for just a minute. It is a non-tropical area of low pressure right there. Yeah, it's got the front associated with it. So that's your non-tropical area, dry air punching in. It's still a mid-latitude cyclone, but it is not a tropical cyclone. Again, it's all about the science and the classification, but pretty impressive vorticity signature to be sure. Anyway, 94L elongated, that's elongated, and we'll just have to see if anything can get more concentrated with either of these two systems. Again, battling that background state that is not particularly favorable right now. Looking at the neat little dashboard over at Tropical Tidbits, limited convection with our system out here, 94L. There's the position of it, and this is what some of the spaghetti plots show. Not that much running for it because there's not that much going for it. Nevertheless, the energy and the moisture and all that will eventually make its way into the Greater Antilles. And yes, there will be heavy rain. And yes, that means impacts. So we have to keep an eye on that, be ready for it, and respect it. Some of the computer models still want to make this a Category 1 hurricane. We'll see. The hurricane-specific models generally do not agree with that. There's your HWRF and your HAVs, your hurricane analysis forecast system. It's a newer model. Some of the models, the statistical, yeah, they're kind of wanting this to be a hurricane. Maybe they need to look at the satellite and other stuff, right? I don't know. And the other one, like I said, is not an invest area. Plenty of action out in the West Pacific. We might look at that tomorrow. We'll wait and see. But yeah, there's going to be some stuff brewing in the Westpac. Meanwhile, and I guess we'll use red here to make everything pop better, different kind of look to the map I'm going to show you here. There's the southeast United States. There's Florida. And look at all that dry air around Florida and the Carolinas and elsewhere. After what we've been through, we need it. Then here's the moisture envelope with our disturbance in the Northwest Caribbean. There's 94L, surrounded by dry air. But all that moisture in there, this is your relative humidity in the middle part of the atmosphere. So if you took a big chunk out of the atmosphere from 300 millibars, kind of up high, down to 700 millibars, not particularly low in the atmosphere, but it's a section of the atmosphere, right? The atmosphere is made up of layers, and this layer of it here, lots of deep moisture there. And watch what happens, especially with this Caribbean system, that does move its way right into Central America. So if you've got a cruise planned, you're heading down to Cozumel or Cancun, you're flying down, you could get some, squally conditions, wet weather, all that kind of nastiness as we get into the weekend. You got wedding plans down there, October weddings, fall weddings, I don't know. You just got to be ready. This is coming, even though it might not have a name. And the GFS is trying to develop it there, so this could sneak in and become our in storm, Nadine. We will see about that. But the biggest thing here is all that moisture scooting across. Big rainmaker there across a pretty large area. So when you see all that deep green, think rain. And then 94L right here, that also dives to the southwest over time, gets really stretched out there, and its moisture strings out across a pretty large area. Nothing to be concerned with outside of a lot of heavy rain, and that can be a problem. And just moving this on out through the next week or so, really just not a favorable time of it over the next 7 days for anything to really get going. But beyond that time frame, our good friend Ben Knoll, who is eventually going to move back to the lower 48, hip hip hooray. Can't wait for that. Maybe he can go with me on a lake effect snow event or a big nor'easter or something. That would be an awesome dynamic duo of Mark Sudduth and Ben Knoll. I mean, the guy knows winter weather. Come on. I would love it. Anyway, although the Atlantic is quiet now, the basin will get a boost from a convective pulse. That's that MJO coming back around late October, early November. This may bring about one final opportunity for tropical storm and hurricane activity this season. The models are generally all over it, the GFS, the Euro, indicating a more favorable rising air pattern as we close out October and get into early November. Let's go back to this and just pause it on any particular frame. We do have to watch this area. We've had some massive hurricanes come out of the Western Caribbean in late October into early November. Not trying to worry anybody. I am just telling you the facts. That is why hurricane season goes through the end of November. But for now, nothing to worry about except rain. And again, you know it, that's an impact. And we could get some big rains from one or both of these systems. So as long as you're aware of it, especially if you're going down there to the Yucatan, Belize, and aforementioned areas, maybe on a cruise or whatever, you just got to be aware. That's all it is. All right? Have a good rest of your Thursday. As always, thank you for giving me some time. I appreciate it. I always hope you learned something from all of us at HurricaneTrack. Have a good rest of your afternoon. I'm Mark Sudduth. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.